Welcome back in, Raider Nation, to the pregame presented by Twitch. Vince Sapienza here, coming from Raiders HQ, joined alongside, once again, as always, 8-year NFL vet, former Raiders running back Rashad Jennings. Rashad, we have a lot to dive into as we get set for Week 5, but as we always, we can't look forward without looking back. Week 4 at home, Allegiant Stadium, was a game I think many thought was a gettable game, a game they should win. I don't know how you get into the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, but here we are. What did you make of Week 4 against the Bears and how the Raiders looked moving forward into the season?
Yeah, Week 4, Bears, Raiders, I call that the paradox game. And the reason why, Raiders Nation, understand this. If you rush for 240-plus yards in a game, 87% chance of winning. That's what statistics say. It is not my opinion. These are some hard evidence. And if you throw for 3 interceptions in a game, you're supposed to lose. And as a 16% chance of winning with 3 interceptions, 87% chance of winning when rushing for 240 plus. And something had to give. And if you do the numbers, it's only a 3% off on that ratio, the win-loss, if you add it up. And folks, it came down to the kick, which was blocked. And so statistically speaking, I don't think I've ever seen a game follow the predictions that finite to the very last play. It's a hard-fought game. A lot of positives to be able to take away from that game and the run game and how they were efficient and being able to move the ball. One thing I do love about it is Geno Smith's willing to take it right on the chin and say, hey, that's on me. It won't happen again. Moving forward. And if we can build on some of the things we saw in the run game, and we can build on some of the things we even saw a little bit in special teams play of moving the chains, not the blocking, we got to figure that out. I think a lot of people can be happy with how they competed on that defensive side of the ball with Maxx Crosby being everywhere, along with White.
Now, Rashad, in addition to all the statistics that you just put out there, you know, we've seen this season a lot of field goal blocks across the league, right? That has been up in a major way in the first quarter of the season. But the statistical anomaly that the farthest rusher on the field goal block unit is the one to make the block. I know you've been on many special teams units. Can you speak to how rare and the difficulty of that is, not for the field goal to be blocked, but where the block came from?
Yeah, folks, this is interesting to me. I'm one who actually made a living on special teams. Blocking punts was my expertise. I tied a record for most blocks at a point in time. And these blocks on the field goals, every team that made a block won. So that's telling you something. What's going on right now is they're figured out how to pile 2 players in one gap. That's what it is. And it's one of the reasons why the idea of a push tush was actually banned years ago, because defense had started the push tush where they would line up some defensive line, get some linebackers right behind them, and on blocking field goals specifically, they would just bombard one spot. And they got rid of it. And that's why a lot of people get very upset on the push tush allowed on the offensive side of the ball, but not to tell Swin into that conversation to answer you guys, let them know directly. It is very difficult when you have 500-600 pounds coming in one gap and you're basically doing a mini split as an offensive lineman with your head down to hold that position for too long. And so these guys are jumping the ball. You study the snap count. You study the tendencies. I think what's going to happen is you're going to hear some hard counts more often on some of these field goals, because if you study every single long snapper, folks, they get paid millions of dollars to make sure they are snapping the ball precisely to the holder every time. And all of them have a particular cadence. If you study it long enough, this is what I did to block punts, they don't change their routine. And so I think you're going to see some long snappers have to switch up their cadence and how they get things done.
And it's interesting, obviously, Jonah Laulu on that right side of the field goal protect, not normally the guy, but because of the injury and the concussion of Michael Mayer, he was not in. So we'll see if that is fixed moving forward and the availability for one Michael Mayer. But as we transition now and start turning the page onto Week 5, what did we learn from the Raiders from Week 4 and the first quarter of games as a whole? And which Geno Smith do you think is the real Geno Smith moving forward?
he's known for getting the ball right in these skinny windows. And I think it's still a little bit early in the NFL right now in the first quarter. But you're trying to get in routine with your guys. And you see that across the league. You saw that last night when the Rams took on the 49ers. Like you see veteran quarterbacks still not in tune with all their receivers. So I think that will come. I think 3 interceptions, would say is too much. And I believe that moving forward, you'll see a lot more efficiency from Geno. You'll see a lot more stubbornness with Geno and not trying things, because even Pete Carroll says in practice, he always gets it. So, you always go to how you practice. So I expect him to be a little bit more stingier with the ball.
Yeah, it was an interesting stat I found from 2013 to 2024. Geno Smith had 4 total games where he threw 3 interceptions. And in 4 games with the Raiders, he's already had 2. So it feels like it's an anomaly. And when you hear Pete Carroll, when you hear Geno Smith talk, you talked about the word stubborn, a little hard-headed, because he knows he can make those throws. It's just not clicking right now. So it feels like that will be corrected. As far as Ashton, to your point, he had the game. He had the breakout game, right? So all the wondering, the hoping, the potential is now gone, because we've seen it. We've seen it in real form. Take me back to your playing days when you had your first big game. What did that do for you in terms of setting you up for the rest of your career, and how much did it help you with your internal confidence? Because I think we saw it in real time with Ashton, not just with the numbers alone, but even the way he does his stance, right? The Michael Myers stance where he stands straight up. You can tell he's comfortable. You can tell he's comfortable within himself, and it showed in the production.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to relate to that a little bit. So one situation with the stance and one situation with kind of the pressure as an athlete coming in. So myself, I was the 7th round draft pick, Jacksonville Jaguars, 2009. So it wasn't as much of pressure on me to perform immediately and now to show why they spent, $28,000 on signing me for a signing bonus. So I can't experience that kind of pressure until I became with the New York Giants and I was a full-time starter, and they wanted to see, okay, they brought this guy over. I want to see him produce. Now, once you produce, the monkey is off the back. It's like, okay, the fans, the coaching staff, the team even knows, all right, that's why we got him in the saddle. Now we can get going. Mm-hmm. And you can settle in and play yourself. But I will say this, when I was in Jacksonville, one of the things that kind of like, as a rookie, like you have to do is perform. You got to perform at an extreme high level to stay on the team. Now I had a particular way I would block, Vince, and it wasn't orthodox. All these running back coaches that I've ever had tells you the same thing on how to pass protect. You got your inside hands, you lock in, and it's all robots, right? Now, I'm 6'2", 240, strong as an ox. And every time I went in there and try to get low and stick my little hands in like this and hands in leverage, it wouldn't work for me. And I'm trying. I'm trying to please my coach. I'm trying to do what they say. And I'm getting screamed at because I'm not doing good. And I'm like, I'm a 7th round draft pick. I'm sick of going out here performing how you keep telling me to perform, and it's bad. Now, I'm a 7th round, so I know I ain't got that much leeway room. If I don't perform now, they gonna cut me. So I said, I'm going out how I came in. I went back to my unorthodox way of blocking. Hands downwards on them. Start stone colding everybody. They backed off me. He said, hey, we just gonna let him do his thing. I guess he just blocks different. But long story short, I finished my career in the top 4 pass pro every single year because I didn't miss blocks. So sometimes you got to let a kid do what makes a kid special if you see he's special in that area. So I think we got a chance to see that Michael Myers' stance makes a difference for him, and let him do what he needs to do, man. We got to move these chains.
And it's fascinating because, he's being asked about, like, what is it about the stance? Like, why is that the difference you feel just helps you? And he goes, I can't explain it. I don't have a good reason for it other than it's just what I do. It's just He can't explain it. He literally had no words this week, Rashad, and we're all trying to understand it, and he can't even properly verbalize it.
I tell you what, if we get some time, I'll really break down why it works for him specifically. But it does. Your lean, your stance, your first step, everything makes a big difference, folks. When you run a 40-yard, there's a difference between a 4.44 and a 4.4 flat. And it's like, oh, it's not that big of a difference. It's all the way you come out of your stance. And some people's leverage is different. And you got to study that and know that and be a neurotic about the game of football and not just pigeonhole everybody. You're a professional athlete. I could go on and on for stuff like this because I'm an unorthodox player, and you have to treat everybody completely different. Nobody fits in the same cookie cutter as you want them to.
Well, again, as you said, whatever moves the chains and whatever gets him going, let him do, let him eat, let him cook. I do want to ask you this now. I know it was a loss. The outcome wasn't what the Raiders wanted, and nobody's accepting that, right? But there was still a lot of good that was seen. To all the points you made about the statistics, 3-interception game, and the Raiders were in position, probably should have won that game because of all the good stuff that they were able to do. That includes the run game. We talked about Ashton. Let's talk about the offensive line. Jackson Powers-Johnson had the game of his life. Again, only 18 games in his NFL career, but he proved why he needs to be out on the field every single Sunday for every single snap. Colton Miller goes down late in that game. He's now on the IR, going to be out for at least 4 games. And all the good that the momentum you thought you had now kind of hits a bit of a speed bump with your best offensive lineman not available this Sunday. In comes Stone Forsythe, the guy whose numbers and grades have not been good in recent years, but he has familiarity with Pete. He has familiarity with the system. How do the Raiders make this work and continue the momentum with arguably, I don't even think it's an argument, their best lineman not in the game?
It's tough. I don't think you try to replace a player for a player. I think you try to put in a player. I think you put in a player who can compete, who knows the system, who can run the system, who understands the system, and who's been in the fire before. And that's what you're bringing in. You're not bringing somebody who's just on the couch relaxing. You're bringing in an active player. Yes, if you're arguably losing your best offensive line, it does change some of the chemistry. And one of the best ways to build chemistry is somebody who's been in that particular laboratory before.
Mm-hmm. Ashton has talked a lot this week about how much communication he personally has with the offensive linemen, whether it's the meeting, film rooms, whatever it may be. I guess that's something new that I've heard. How rare is that? Is that normal for running backs to have conversations with linemen about tendencies, nuance, what have you?
I would say this is not abnormal, but is it the average memes across college football, NFL? No, surprisingly not. I mentioned this before on record. I say it again. As a running back, and for sure, I'm ever blessed with an opportunity to coach at any level. One of the things that I think is mandatory is always having time specifically dedicated to your running backs and offensive line watching film together, because those are the units you're trying to piece together. And knowing the calls with one another, anticipating everything with one another. I need my offensive line to anticipate exactly what Genty is looking at and thinking because of his skill set. And I need Genty to understand what that offensive lineman is thinking because of his skill set and how they're trying to – it's a marriage, man. And, individual canceling when it comes to marriage is a good thing. But guess what is also pertinent? Marriage canceling together. Because at the end of the day, when you leave, you're not an individual anymore. And when you get out on that field, you're not an individual. 11 players wearing the same color jersey and helmets equals team. So you got to watch the film together.
Chip Kelly had a fun, light back and forth regarding Jackson Powers-Johnson this past week about his head's getting a little big. He's really feeling himself. So let's not talk about aura. Let's not give him more than he already needs. But again, he kept it light. But I could also definitely see JPJ probably was walking around chest out a little bit more this week after having the performance that he did. Were there guys in the locker room in your career that you remember just, their presence was felt? Beyond just the standard execution of a game. Like they the little extra that they provided, whether it was personality, whether it was juice, however you want to quantify it, could you feel that in different players?
Oh yeah, and every player kind of brings their own little style and element to the table. Especially your playmakers, right? Some playmakers are like your Garrett's, where it's just I make the plays and I'm gonna go about my business, or you got your Larry Fitzgeralds of the world where I'm scoring my touchdown and where's the referee, and that is awesome, and you actually play off that just the same, right? You look forward to that classy act of somebody who just scored a touchdown. It's like, hey, wait, watch this. Here's to the ref. Like, you look forward to your playmaker. Whatever your playmaker's doing, you're building off of that. And so, absolutely, Odell, man, hey, I wanted him to score to see what kind of celebration he was going to do. He going to do the Michael Jackson today? Or he going to jump in the stand? I don't know. I can't wait to see it. It excites everybody. And so when you have an anticipation for one of your playmakers, man, it doesn't make a big difference for sure. Especially in your offensive line, they do their pancake things and do these these things are what makes a great team, just like what it does with a family. You got to have that uncle or aunt that's just a little goofy or odd when they get excited for stuff, because you look forward to that conversation at Thanksgiving and Christmas. And yes, it helps build chemistry in your team.
It's funny. The Raiders, the Raiders introduced the offense before the game in week 4. That includes Ashton. That includes Geno. That includes Brock. But nobody got a bigger roar than when Jackson Powers Johnson came out onto the field, and he delivered in a big way with his production. I don't know if you saw his dance moves with Ashton in the end zone. Hell, even his tackles on the interceptions, they were perfect form tackles. We could go on and on about JPJ, but now I think the biggest difference for JPJ now is, can he do it week in and week out? That'll be the challenge for the second year offensive lineman. Let's switch to the defensive side, and I do want to get your 2 cents on what we saw out of Maxx Crosby in week 4, because by statistic standards, it was a historic first half. 3 batted balls, 3 TFLs, and an interception. He was a nuisance, a problem every single play. As an offense, when a player's on like that, is there anything you can do when he's operating at that level?
Yeah, run the other way. That's it. You double team them, you triple team them, you send a running back to chip block them. You try to run away from him. If he's too busy on the back end exploiting you, you got to run a couple counter traps, something. But he's just a special guy, and everybody knows it. He knows it. Team knows it. Obviously, Caleb Williams said after the game he's flat out the best player I've ever played against. And he's an X on every offensive coordinator's list. You got to figure out how to control that spots, but he's exciting. I tell you, when you're playing against somebody like that, you're always aware of where they are. And when somebody on your team is like that and you're watching them make the plays, man, it motivates you on the other side of the ball to keep it going. And you always think you got a chance. You always think you have a chance when a guy like that is on the defensive side of the ball. You believe you can get a turnover. You believe it can be a 3 and out. You believe something can change the game. And so for a guy like him, not only is he just amazing on the football field, he's the kind of guy that's amazing and makes it contagious and keeps your team hoping and thinking that they can win.
Okay, as we turn now to week 5 on the road in Indianapolis, a clash with the Colts on Sunday, 10 a.m. kickoff at Lucas Oil Stadium. We talked about all the good that we saw in week 4, but at the end of the day, you said it, Geno said it, the loss was on him. You got to take care of the football. You cannot turn the football over in this league, no matter how well the rest of your game is going or the rest of your team is doing. How do the Raiders take that? Snap this skid on the road in Indy. Is it simply taking care of the ball and Geno getting it right?
Yeah, man. And going to Indy, I tell you, every time I played in Indy, I always thought about the NFL Combine. Every time I'm in the stadium, because that's where it was at, right? And so I think that's still where it's at, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And so a lot of these guys, here's a place where you're on the road and you're going back to the humble beginnings, where it all started. you at the combine, trying to take over the league. And it is that effect that you have when you go there. You remember these things. So playing away, going there, take care of the ball for sure. But it's something special that they got going on in Indy. I mean, you look at a Daniel Jones, he was thrown into the trash, into the lion's den. He's no more. He's thrown away from the Giants, and he goes and he gets a revamped start where now in week 4, he's the second leading passer in the NFL. And it's like, where did this guy come from? And then also you look at the rushing game, the Indianapolis Colts, #1 rushing yards in the NFL. It's like, okay, they got the #2 passing, the #1 rushing. Where are they inefficient? Where do we attack these guys? And if you watch the game, they ain't nowhere special to attack besides right down the throat. You got to play smash mouth football because that's what they're doing to everybody else. They playing bully ball. They say they're going to be more physical than you. They're going to control the clock. They play classic football how you want it to be played. And so this is a hard hat game for sure. Yeah, there are going to be some schemes that you could try to build up to get them on the edge and some pressures. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a bloodbath. The only way that you can win this type of football game.
And it really does feel like if there is a vulnerability for the Colts, it might be on their back end defensively. I know their defensive line haven't gotten home as much as they would have hoped early on in the season, but it's a young secondary. Xavier Howard just retires. They've got injuries. It feels like if there was ever a game for Geno to kind of put the team back on his shoulders, not only bounce back, but kind of lead them to win, it feels like this one might be it. How big of an uphill battle do you see it? Do you see a shootout? You said smash mouth. Do you see this as a kind of defensive nitty-gritty type game?
I do see it more on the gritty side.
Yeah.
I do know the Colts they're a little bit more susceptible in the back end for sure. I think with Geno coming off back-to-back games with 3 interceptions, I think he's thinking about that as well. But I also think he's thinking about, man, the Colts are probably saying the same thing. If we're going to get one, here's the one we're going to get, because he hasn't been performing well. And so I think that's why you smash mouth. I want my quarterback, and Geno, don't think he's one of these guys that kind of gets in his own way. He's a gunslinger, and he's known for the deep ball. I expect Tucker to get a couple of deep balls. Expect Myers to find some good targets on some flag routes. And so I think this is the type of game that is going to be smash mouth, but play action is where I think the Raiders will lean on heavy.
That is fascinating perspective from a man who can only provide it to us, Rashad Jennings. This has been the pregame presented by Twitch. You can find all our episodes up on Raiders.com, Raiders YouTube, or wherever you find your podcasts as well. That is going to do it for Rashad. I'm Vince Sapienza, coming from Raiders HQ. Raider Nation, enjoy the game on Sunday. Kickoff, 10 a.m., Raiders, Colts. We'll talk to you next week.